Hello, everybody. Welcome to Before the Commit, episode 13. Holy crap. This episode, we're going to be talking about a little bit deeper into OpenAI Atlas. We kind of touched on it last week. We're going to hit that on Tool of the Week. We're also going to talk about how attackers are actually setting up websites to build ransomware using vibe hacking. Interesting. Using Claude Code for Evil or whatever LLM you might be using. And also some news out of Amazon. We're going to start there. With me as usual, I have my friend Dustin Hillgartner. How you doing, Dustin?
Very good. Hello.
So yeah, there was a report this morning that Amazon is laying off 16,000 workers, making more investments into AI. So yeah, I know we talk a bit about the how AI might be taking jobs away. This is apparently the layoffs are the biggest in Amazon's history. And yeah, there's a quote here. This generation of AI is the most transformative technology we've ever seen on the internet, and it's enabling companies to innovate much faster than ever than before. This is a senior vice president of people experience and technology at Amazon. We're convinced that we need to be organized more leanly with fewer layers and more ownership to move as quickly as possible for our customers and business. The layoffs are expected to ultimately be the largest corporate job cuts in Amazon's history. The cuts could affect as many as 30,000 employees. And this is in Amazon's video games, groceries, human resources, sustainability, communications, ads, and device units were informed of cuts early Tuesday morning, which is today.
It's a very interesting story. I know that there was something that came out the other day that made news from Amazon about their automation department talking about how I think they were, their rollout for robots and their sort of like freeze on new hiring, I think, of warehouse workers or something like that. I heard. And people were also linking that to potential AI, although that was kind of like not an official release. That was kind of like a leak from an internal division of Amazon, internal employee of Amazon or area of Amazon. So I don't think it counts as an official. It could have just been upwards guidance that's not taken or something like that. But yeah, this is a story that's really hitting hard right now. Is you have what appears to be kind of a settling of the business cycle in terms of we're going into a softening period where companies are cutting back on employees. But it's also linked now with AI in people's minds. So anytime people are laying off employees, there's an open question about whether or not they're being replaced by AI or if AI was the catalyst that caused it. And I wonder if this is something that was caused directly by AI. Did they? I imagine they probably don't say that in the article because it would be pretty controversial. But is that the insinuation being made?
Yeah, I mean that is. I mean that's the root. That's basically what they're saying. I mean, I think Amazon has said all along, like we've even said here that like 80% of developers at Amazon use AI for coding. Obviously, this affects more than that, but I imagine that's a good tell of how Amazon has leveraged AI, to improve efficiencies, across the board. Generally speaking, Amazon is a company that's always leaned in on automation in order to improve logistics and other areas of their business. So, yeah, I mean, I think they're pretty forthcoming about it. And this report was kind of on the heels of, Bill Gates saying today, kind of talking about the AI bubble. So, there's those sorts of things that happen in this like environment, like
Mhm.
you know, you have so much money invested into AI, and then you're also laying off workers. Like, so yeah, I mean, there's connective tissue there.
Yeah. So I know that the quote that came out of the CEO of Amazon, Andy Jassy, was telling staffers, we'll need fewer people doing some jobs that are done today and more people doing other types of jobs.
Yep.
But it sounds like the fewer jobs are going first. And then the more jobs are either in less in proportion and therefore don't overcome the losses, or they're coming later.
Well, they don't say that the people that have those jobs are going to be doing the other jobs because those skills may not be transferable. Like, for example, like if you are working on logistics and you're not a software engineer, you can't all of a sudden be a software engineer that's writing software for logistics.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
You sure about that? YouTube says I could be a software engineer right now
Well, I encourage people to
with no code.
follow their dreams if that's something you want to do. Certainly,
I don't
anybody's
even have to look at the
capable.
code. I can make any
Yeah,
application, I'm told.
yeah. That's like
It's not
the
quite there
Neo mode
yet, but
where I know kung fu.
yeah. But this is concerning because if this is becoming a trend, then one of the things I have concern about with AI,
Mhm.
particularly as we compete with other nations, is like there's a lot of like bumps in the road coming down like, on our side of on in our country. Meaning, there's going to be unrest about layoffs if there are any layoffs. Whether layoffs are connected to AI or not, they're going to be thought of being connected to AI. Maybe they
Yep.
are being connected to AI. Maybe AI is going to take jobs at the margins, and what people are calling job disruption, and that's all going to cause havoc in the United States. And I wonder if our competitors in China are going to also have uh, stumbling blocks in their road towards competing with us in AI. It's going to be
Yeah, some of
interesting to
this
see.
yeah, some of the layoffs appear to be, and I don't know if this is just, CEO speak, but some of the layoffs are related to kind of scaling down some of the workforce that was hired during COVID. So people were home, they were shopping more. So they're saying that some of that demand is down. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway,
And that's an interesting. I heard that same thing. I think it was on the All In podcast. I think David Sachs, who works for the administration, had brought that up. That some of these charts that are showing that less senior workers are being hired. I'm sorry, senior workers are continuing to be hired. The first rung of the ladder, folks coming out of colleges, the more junior folks, there seems to be a drop of hires amongst companies that are embracing AI. And that started around 2021 or 2022. And there's this open argument about whether that is directly applicable to AI or whether that has to do with some of the COVID era policies rolling off. Now, obviously, the current administration wants to pin it on COVID because they don't want to, really feed into this narrative that there's all this job loss happening. So it'll be interesting to see when there's a definitive like this is what's causing it, and there's no way to like spin out of it. If it directly gets related to AI, I think it starts to become a social problem.
yeah. So, why don't we jump into the tool of the week? There's some other news or noise that's connected to this, so I think it's a good place to start. So last week we talked about new web browser out of OpenAI called Atlas. So yeah, tell us about Atlas.
I've actually been using Atlas quite a bit. And I have to tell you, there's kind of like a journey you go on with Atlas a little bit.
There's a
At
what?
least a little bit of a journey you go on with Atlas a little bit. By the way, I got a new mic, so I probably still have to configure some of the sound. We'll have to see if I'm coming in well. But at first, you start to use it like a web browser because it is a web browser. And there's a little bit of like an awkwardness to it, right? Like you're talking about a page you're on, and then you have this bar, this left side bar, like you do, like the ChatGPT web page is framed in your browser, and you have like other things you can click on there. But when you click on it, you navigate away from the chat you're in. So it's like there's these awkward handshake things that are going on with it. Now, those will all be ironed out. Those are like little, V1 type things that get ironed out probably pretty quickly. So I don't want to hit it too hard on those. But there is some awkwardness that you'll have in the beginning when using it. But and I would have to say I walked in kind of pessimistic because I was like, I don't really need something to browse for me. But the more I used it, the more I realized that there are some very useful things you can do when you have an agent working in the background, particularly if it can work in the background for some time. Like a good example is, let's say you get out of a meeting and they say, hey, we want to do a new initiative, and you're a salesperson, and it's in a new industry, and you have to go and, mine your Rolodex or your contacts to find out who might be in those industries. Now, typically you would go on LinkedIn and you'd use some searches related to like keywords, if you're searching for a security company, you'd search for like, security, or you'd search for like, maybe pen tests, or other types of keywords that you think might get you closer to the type of company that you're looking for. Well, using the ChatGPT browser can actually take that sort of tedious task and make it into a background task for you. So you can just you can imagine you get out of a meeting where that meeting took place. Hopefully your company is using AI meeting notes. You can go grab the meeting notes from the AI. You can go paste it into ChatGPT and say, hey, can you go find people in my Rolodex that fit this category? And it's not just going to do keyword searches. It's going to look at every single person it finds and then, go through the natural language judgment. Hey, this person is in this, but they have too much connection to this other company that you say you don't want to. So I took them out of the list. Those types of things, those types of adjustments. And I have to say, it does a decent job. You know what I mean? Like, especially because it's taking place in the background. There's something kind of interesting about like kicking off a job and it's navigating and clicking around in LinkedIn or somewhere else. And then you just like minimize it and go on with your day. And then at some point in the future, it goes ding. And then you look at it, and what I can tell you is what it comes back with is actually not a waste of time. It's decent information. So I'd say it did a pretty good job with V1. Now, that's like the tactical. The strategic is like, is the browser the right place to be? I'm not sure. But I can tell you that I do find it useful. I do use it. When I first, I had drifted away from ChatGPT a little bit and more towards like the Grok and the Claude, because I use Claude so much more for coding. I use Grok for really deep questions and the deep research type stuff I do. I really wish Grok could code so that I could just like consolidate down to one. But I actually went in reverse now. Like I bought an account with ChatGPT for $20 just to use this browser thing. And then I was going to cancel it and say, oh, okay, I used it enough to talk about it. But now I'm contemplating keeping it because it is actually useful enough to be worth the $20 for me. Little things like, let's say you're moving and you need to fill out like a rental application. Like just put the PDF into the browser and tell it to go research this or that and fill out the PDF for you. Kind of sucks at filling out PDFs, as we all know, but there's a lot of time-saving things it can do that are useful. Now, I'll be honest with you. You can do a lot of what you can with this new browser just with regular ChatGPT. Like if you were to ask it to go research your LinkedIn Rolodex and you had an MCP server attached with LinkedIn access, it could totally do that. And it would probably do just as good of a job. So in some ways, the browser is just a slightly different user interface for what you already have. But where it does excel is that it can navigate around, click on buttons and things like that. That stuff you're not going to be able to get. Like you can't go into regular ChatGPT and tell it to make an Instacart order for you. Now, am I personally going to make Instacart orders this way? Probably not. But I could see a future where that has gone through iteration after iteration after iteration till it's so good that I start doing Instacart orders or I start doing
like
that way.
Say you wanted to like cook something, like tonight I want to have like blah blah blah. It goes and pulls a recipe and then adds all the ingredients to your cart. Now you could do stuff like this at Instacart already, but they have pre-canned items, so you might be like, it might know that like, you are like, pescatarian or whatever, or vegetarian based off of your interactions with it. And so like those sort of recommendations are now guided by your own preferences that are, way more granular. And it could ask you additional questions like, do you want dessert? Do you prefer organic over like, does it matter? So I could see things like that, like,
I already use AI like that, but I use Grok and the regular chatbot for that.
And is it wired into like, but you then manually have to go and add the items to your cart if you're doing like an Instacart order?
Yeah, well, I don't do Instacart orders. I'm mostly just going to the grocery store myself. I just had a child, so like anytime I can get out. Now I love going grocery shopping. I'm like, oh, you need groceries? I'll go get them.
Okay, so you put your Optimus inside your Tesla and it goes shopping for you. But
No
still,
way.
how do you tell the Optimus what you ordered? Guess it's wired into Grok, so it knows.
Well, besides getting out of the house a few moments to get a breather,
hopefully
if
your
I
wife is not listening.
Oh, we both do it. We're like, who wants to alternate? So she's probably laughing if she was watching, but but my usage of AI when it comes to grocery shopping is like, and by the way, this is maybe get a little philosophical with it. It's almost like AI kind of makes you like, this is going to sound absolutely ridiculous, but it kind of makes you like a little bit of a Renaissance man, because you start like going into fields that you never went into before. Like I'm not really a great cook. And I actually have never really found a lot of pleasure in cooking. But ever since I had a child, I started cooking more often. And I started to get a little bit of a liking for it. And AI is just amazing with cooking, because I can take all the ingredients I have and I can go to the grocery store real quick and say, hey, I have these ingredients. I want to make chicken. What's something I can add to it? Like it gets you that, you have the base of a dish, but you need that extra ingredient to make it pop in one direction or another. Like AI can really help you navigate and come up with great ideas for what might work in a dish that gets off of the beaten path of recipes. Because anytime you search for a recipe, you're always going to be some subset off, and you're like, it's not perfect. From what you have at your house, you don't have all the ingredients. You always got to pick up something. But with AI, it can like thread the needle in a way that a recipe won't be able to do. It can take your ingredients and tell you what thing you need to add or what you can do with the ingredients you have if you have nothing to buy. So I find that very, very useful. I find AI, I have a Tesla, so I have Grok in the car. I find that useful at times too. It's not very well integrated, meaning it doesn't know where you are. So it's just literally like you had the speech to speech of Grok in your car. Now, eventually, it'll have MCP tools. Like I imagine eventually I'm going to be able to tell it, navigate, and it will go full self drive there, as opposed to me having to push buttons on the screen. But it's not there yet as far as the grok goes. But it's very useful when you're like, hey, I'm in the car. Here's where I am. Can you go find something to eat that's like this? And it goes find something for you. That stuff is useful. So there's a lot of like interesting productivity increases that you get in your daily life. And the browser, I think, is definitely one of those things. And OpenAI, I think, has this. It is useful. It's worth checking out and trying. Now it's a little bit awkward as a web browser, though, which is interesting. But I think that might just be a learning curve that I have to go through. And then also, I think that it's a V1, so it's going to quickly iterate in some direction based on user feedback.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, there was the Hacker News reported. I mean, I'm assuming there's tons of these types of attacks, but a specific type of attack, surprise, uses prompt injection. But basically, you have fake URLs where you can trick it into executing commands. So yeah, I mean, just imagine like, okay, your browser can now read the DOM, and like you can basically do stuff where you hide stuff in a web page, and you do malicious things with it. So yeah, I mean, we talk about this stuff all the time.
You're going to be able to passively attack AI now, I think, right? Like and maybe there was already ways of doing this, with GEO and everything like that. But now it's going to become much more present. Like now you're just going to be able to, now there's going to be attacks that are just laying in wait for someone to come to the page with the AI, as opposed to actively trying to inject something or actively trying to manipulate the prompt. It's going to be laying in wait for that data to end up in the right place at the right time to make an AI do something that is not wanted. It's going to be interesting to see how those attacks are implemented and whether people can figure out ways to make them effective.
Essentially.
Has there been an actual reported attack in AI with some sort of damages, or has everything up until this point been research?
I mean, I don't know. I can look into it. I imagine that, there is some like loss somewhere for some people. I mean, we hear about like data exfiltration happening, like for example, like the Claude Code like issue. This particular attack, so the omnibar in OpenAI Atlas is like the one in Google, right? So today, if you put and I guess you could do this with Chrome already, is if you put you could search in the location bar in Chrome, and so if it's not a URL, if it doesn't start with HTTPS, then the browser treats it like a search engine and then passes it. So what you could do is you could craft a URL that doesn't have HTTPS in it, or is like malformed slightly, and then somebody copies and pastes it thinking that it's a URL, and then the LLM treats it like
a prompt at that point.
A prompt. And so you can have malicious instructions inside of there. And again, I think you could do this today with other, like, for example, like when you search now in Google, Gemini is the default response. And I'm imagining, we talked about this already, that Google has already started to cannibalize their own product. They've had to.
Yeah, they had no choice.
Yeah.
That's an interesting, like, it is true that when you're using the ChatGPT browser, the browser bar is dual purpose. It could be a prompt or it can be a URL.
Yep.
And like you said, it's probably it's making that determination based on like the beginning.
The URL validation mechanism needs to be refined so that it's a little bit more robust. and not
Yeah.
solely relying on like a regex.
And it's interesting, like web links, when you click on them, end up putting the link into the bar at the top. Like, they're going to have to guard against that to make sure that there's no way to like navigate to a link that's not really a link type link thing. They're going to have to do sanitization, like you said, around the inputs on that prompt part. And maybe they already have, I'm not sure. But like, I think you said you saw an article that says they haven't, huh? Or at least at the time of that article, there was an issue with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's other browsers out there, like Perplexity has their own called Comet. There's Opera has their own one. I mean, most of the browsers work this way, but as more and more browsers continue to like integrate into AI, an LLM, there becomes a need to, kind of, make these things a little bit better. I mean, there's attacks about, if you can read what's on a web page, you could inject content there. So you could have a website that's malicious, by kind of hiding content inside of the DOM that maybe the browser you can't physically see. One such attack was detailed by Brave, which has a browser that kind of allows you to, I think their kind of claim is ad-free browsing, but like as you browse, you're actually it uses your computer to mine cryptocurrency. So you're kind of awarded over time for the use of the compute on your machine. But yeah, one of the attacks used faint light blue text on a yellow background, which is then processed by the Comet browser. That's Brave's Perplexity Comet, and uses. Sorry, it wasn't Brave. It was Brave reported it, but it was the Perplexity browser that uses OCR and picks up that data. So like, yeah. I mean, they call it the prompt injection cat and mouse game. Like, you can imagine all kinds of like malicious things that you could do, especially when people are just trying things out. Like people are using LLMs, people are downloading browsers. Oh, it's a ChatGPT browser. I'm going to install that. And yeah, it's not V1, it's like beta, like, so there's all these like issues with it that are going to be discovered very, very quickly. And so I say all that to just say, be careful out there when you use some of the things that we talk about, because they've got rough edges. And a lot of this still is the wild, wild west. It's still blazing trails.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes a lot of sense to understand how this technology works behind the scenes at a high level, because you're going to want to map the network. You're going to want to understand like where your data is going before you start leveraging these tools, particularly in a work environment, right? Like if you're at home doing your own thing, you can be a little bit fast and dirty. Now you want to be careful to protect any private data that you might have. Like, you not want to put credit card numbers and things like that into this stuff just yet.
Speaking of which, wow, what a segue. PayPal announced today that they're adopting a protocol in combination with OpenAI to build an instant checkout feature so that you could start shopping directly in ChatGPT starting next year.
Yeah.
They're adopting the Agentic Commerce Protocol, or ACP, an open source specification developed by OpenAI that allows merchants to make their products available within AI apps, consequently enabling users to shop using AI agents. Yeah. So meanwhile, OpenAI's instant checkout feature launched in September lets users confirm their orders, shipping, and payment details and complete purchases without. So now when you think about Atlas and yeah, you could see the kind of like groundwork that's being laid.
Now, in defense of maybe how they're doing this, and disclaimer, I don't really know how they implemented it. But I'd have a hard time believing that the AI at any point comes in direct contact with your credit card number. Most likely that's stored in a traditional location,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
the
yeah,
and
yeah.
your and the AI is about finding the product that you might want. It's more about finding and adding to the cart. And then once you get to the end in the cart perspective, it's probably going to be much more like a traditional. So uh, it's now, is it going to eventually get to the point where the AI is buying things for you? Yeah, I'm sure it will. But in the meantime, it's mostly going to be AI finding things and putting them into the cart, and then an integrated experience where maybe you can tell the AI to check out, and then given like some sort of human in the loop approval, you can say, okay, and the AI checks out. I'm not saying it's not going to be a cohesive experience all the way through, but I'm saying there's going to be safeguards in place in
Oh,
terms of human in the loop, and also the fact that your credit card, your actual credit card information is still going to be stored in traditional lock boxes that are, PCI compliant, et cetera. Um,
yeah. Well, I imagine that, because of the way LLMs work, particularly on mobile devices, you're not by default, you don't
mhm.
have to log in every single time. So if somebody gains access to your mobile device or you leave your laptop unlocked and you have, when I go to a LLM like Claude or, I use Claude like for everything now, like not only coding, but I use it as my everyday LLM. Um, I don't log,
That's a great idea.
I don't sign in, I don't
No,
sign in.
I was making a joke about how how uh, sycophant
Actually,
Claude is sometimes.
I find Claude to be
Have they gotten better?
a less not, I would say sycophantic, more like, for example, like if I go to ChatGPT and like, for example, um, if I'm telling it something about like a decision I need help with making, like I
Hmm.
give it a bunch of things, like I need some like assistance, like help me like clarify my thinking.
Hmm.
Like I can go to ChatGPT and I could say, I'm like a little worried about this, and it's like, oh well, you could do this, this, and that,
Hmm.
and like I can ask the same question to Claude, and Claude will be like, you know, just be patient, relax. You're overthinking it. So
Yeah.
I find it to be a little bit more sycophantic than say
And then you ask
ChatGPT or
Grok, and it's
Gemini.
like, that is illogical. You are wrong. That's
So
exactly my experience. Is like, depending on
so I
how much you want to guard your ego is depending on what chat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. How am I feeling today? Which one of my friends should I talk to that'll co-sign my bullshit?
I'm feeling a bit weak emotionally. I'm not going to use Grok today.
So, yeah, I guess for sure you need strong security controls because you
Yeah.
need to like say re-authenticate to PayPal right before you check out. Um,
Hmm.
Especially with some of the weaknesses that are being discovered, like, could you do a side channel attack and, like fraudulently access somebody else's, PayPal information? And if you could, you would want that re-authentication mechanism, like that last mile, like MFA, like, final sort
Oh
of
yeah,
check, like
yeah.
push notification or whatever have you.
I feel like there's got to be like an MFA involved in here, that because this thing's going to be in the background doing stuff, and eventually it's going to get to like very important decisions, and
Hmm.
you're going to need to have like a human in the loop MFA that's secure. uh, MFA becomes more or less it evolves. It's not just about, you know getting in anymore. It's about like authorizing some sort of action. So this idea that you come in MFA in the morning and then boom, you're done. You're going to be MFAing all the time in the future,
Yeah.
because it's all going
Yep.
to be incremental changes. And the reason why you need that MFA is because this thing's in the background running in some data center. You don't want someone to compromise uh, that um, you know virtual sandbox or whatever you want to call it in the cloud, you don't want someone to pierce that and get inside and then start approving things on your behalf. Or I guess I should say is you don't want to go away from your computer and have someone be able to push things on your computer. You want to have a device that's on you all the time where you can authorize things, I think. So MFA, I think, is going to be very important in order to make sure that the AI that you've commanded to do something, you are still in control of it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Someone hasn't taken that control from you and started approving things on your behalf.
Yeah.
And I think this will be important even outside of like the ways you think it would be. Like, I'm purchasing something. It's going to be important from the perspective of like accountability is going to be so important in the future, because in the future there's going to be this idea of like, I didn't do it, the AI did it,
Yeah, what I'm thinking is like, as time goes on, every person becomes like an HR manager. I don't say HR manager, like a project manager, right? Your life is a project, right? And within it, you have like epics, right? So like one might be like the cooking, one might be the cleaning, one might be the shopping, and those might be connected. And then, you know, social activities. And so you can
the
imagine
word
a
of the
coordinate.
future, the word of the future is delegation.
Yes. So where I was going with that is, as you are tasking robots, whether physical or, an LLM in the cloud or a combination thereof, you do need those check-ins. And I think of Claude Code, right? Now, Claude Code is somewhat of a linear application, but as you are delegating multiple different epics in your life, in your work, you need to respond to those. And I'm imagining like a queuing system. Now, some of those queues may block other tasks, but some of them don't need to be. Some of them can run in parallel to each other. So, what I would envision is like a app that sits on your phone, like, and maybe it's integrated into your LLM app that says queue approval, which is your MFA methodology, that you are reviewing the task, what was done, refining that task, and then say approving it to like, some kind of transaction. Might be shopping, might be to check out, it might be to do the next thing, right? To unblock.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that like the future of AI agents is, let's say you're a billionaire and your whole day is just staff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then your life probably isn't going to change all too much, right? Like that, the staff is going to get way better, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're going to be leveraging AI tools. But you are delegating everything all day anyway. Like if you said, ChatGPT, go find me a flight to my favorite destination or something I'm going to like based on my mood. Like billionaires have had that for a while already. They just call up their executive assistant and say, hey, that's what I want. And that's what takes place. So I think that what this is going to do is it's going to kind of bring everyone up into that level of delegation. People who don't normally delegate or have any privilege to delegate to anybody are now going to learn what it's like to be able to delegate things to other entities. And that's a different paradigm, because you're now having to be you're now having to be better at describing what you want in detail ahead of time, as opposed to saying, oh, never mind, I'll do it. You know what I mean? And
so basically what you're saying
is
everybody needs to start thinking like a billionaire when it comes to delegation.
Everyone needs to start understanding how delegation works,
Yeah.
and understanding how to live in a world where you delegate some things, you delegate things more often. And kind of what I mean by that, like in a business setting, if you're a a team lead or something like that, you're delegating tasks to people, but you're still responsible for them.
Mhm.
You understand what I'm saying? There's a certain level of responsibility that's given to the delegee, the delegatee, and there's certain.
Delegate. I like that word. I'm
That's
gonna
a new
use it.
word.
Delegate.
A delegee. So there's a certain amount of responsibility that's incumbent on the delegator and the delegatee, meaning
Is it delegator and delegate?
delegatee, I think.
Delegator and delegate. I don't know.
Okay,
Anyway.
but think of a business setting. Like there's a certain amount of delegation that you're responsible for versus not. Like in other words, like if you were a team lead and you delegated a task to an employee and that employee did something that would result in someone getting fired, there's some things they could do that gets themselves fired, and there's some things they can do that gets their boss fired, right? That line is going to be important with AI because that's going to be a line that's going to be important for understanding, like, is this a bug of the AI or is this the bug of the user? Right? Did I deal? Oh, thanks. You got the banner on the bottom. Thanks. Jeez. It's rough in here. This is a rough audience. So you're going to have to, there's going to be things that obviously the AI companies, like if I tell it to buy something and it buys the wrong thing, right? Like I say, hey, buy that one I'm looking at right now, and it buys like something I'm not looking at, then that's obviously a problem with delegatee. But if I give it vague instructions and it follows those vague instructions to the best of its ability and does the best job it can and buys something that meets those instructions, but then I don't like the response, that's my fault.
Yeah,
and that's where my MFA, when I have gotten the hey, do you think this is a good thing to do, that's where you got to scrutinize what you do. You got to put the right information in.
You need accountability along with delegation.
And it might sound trivial, but in a business setting, it's going to be incredibly important, right? Because you're going to need to be able to track down the employee that's not using the AI properly and say, you're not using the AI properly. And that's why we're getting these mistakes out of it.
Yep. So with all of this AI-driven browsers, I mean, I'm sure there'll be more of them, Chrome extensions or, plugins, whatever have you, that are do different things. We don't know where this is going to land. Flaws, in URLs, where people use the search bar as a location bar, as I guess it's a search bar. It used to be called the location bar, right? We've talked before about, the homepage, right? Last week, you said it. It's like whoever owns the homepage kind of dictates the future, right? And so OpenAI owns the homepage for the internet, let's say. It's not Google anymore because Google is, the homepage of the internet. And now that's what's up for contention. So with all of that, and we've talked about it here before quite extensively, and then also the stuff with the integrated shopping, and now PayPal's getting involved, and there seems to be an opening being made for another way to monetize the internet. And traditionally has been ad-based revenue. So whether it be in search or social media. And not a new concept, but an article, goodbye SEO, hello GEO. Not really a new concept. So I'll just read like the first 2 paragraphs. When you type in a question to an AI search engine like ChatGPT or Google, AI mode comes up, and it comes up with the answer. That information comes from somewhere, scouring the web for content that's contextually relevant to the asker. It assembles an answer based on several sources, interpreted through the lens of its training data and system prompt. The fight over being one of those sources is the new game of online discovery that's replacing search engine optimization. typically called GEO or AEO, which is generative or answer engine optimization. The field is nascent, and the rules, best practices, and even the benefits aren't entirely clear. There's one thing that everyone agrees on, though: it's growing rapidly. And yeah, I mean, growth markets are opportunities, blah, blah, blah. People are trying to crack the code on how to fuel the answer or be the answer, right? How do you be in the context response? How do you leverage social media, public relations? And yeah, and it goes on and on about, then it talks about how websites are blocking crawlers now, requiring to pay license agreements, which may also further fuel this sort of fight.
Yeah. It's a challenging problem because obviously it's a lucrative monetization strategy, as Google has shown over the course of decade. But the search engine for Google, the way they did ads was they could separate the two, right? They have the search results and then they have the ads, and maybe they intersperse ads into the search results. But it's all separated from each other. Like they can separate the ads from the content, the actual results.
This is what Perplexity is doing for the next 6 months, is they've already launched a campaign to see if they can monetize it. Apparently is people like it, but I don't know how many people. There's 800 million people who use ChatGPT that aren't paying for it, and Perplexity's numbers are much smaller.
I'll have to check that out and see how they're doing it. I do believe that showing the ads alongside your results, I don't have a problem with that. But like once you start getting into like ads somehow ending up in the training data, I worry about that.
Yeah, I don't think that's what's being suggested. Yeah, I don't think that's what's being suggested. I think.
Oh, I'm not saying it's suggested.
People are trying to figure out how to be the answer. Like if you're scraping Reddit or Wikipedia for content and somebody searches for a firewall company, undoubtedly you get responses of vendors.
Yeah.
So you want to be in those answers. Now, that's in the training data. Yeah. Now, that's not ad. You're not paying for that. In lieu of there not being Google's actually starting to roll out ads into the AI responses.
I guess what I'm saying is that adding ads to your application visibly in a sidebar is a net negative to some extent to your app, right? There's going to be people who don't like that, right? Like, I don't know if that's a controversial statement. It shouldn't be, because everyone knows that there's ad blockers all over this huge industry. So clearly people find value in blocking ads. They don't want to see them. So I mean, I don't mind. I don't use ad blockers, but because I also like to see some of the ads, because I work in business. So, I can get a better understanding of how other people are doing ads. But I get it that people don't want to see ads. It's a distraction from what they're looking for. I mean, who wants to wait for a commercial in between their shows when they're watching TV? So I get that. So there's and apply it to TV, right? The better ad is, instead of pausing for 60 seconds from the show to go to our commercial break, the better ad is when the character in the show picks up a Pepsi and says, "Hey, I'm going to drink it," because it's not distracting you from the show. Now the ad's in the show, right? I worry that AI companies will try to thread that needle with training data. They'll say, hey, if we just manipulate the training data a little bit, we can get Black & Decker to the top of the results when you search for drills. And there's going to be unintended consequences in that, because it's hard to separate messing with training data from it rippling into other areas where pathways of logic go down. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, you can see how, I mean, yeah, I see what you're saying. I don't want to compare it to social media, but you could see how Facebook has really kind of, I mean, it's terrible now. Like the home default homepage is like not even what your friends are posting. It's just random crap from other like sources. So yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. I escaped the Facebook
Well, just the social media in general,
a
like,
long time ago.
whether even X or Instagram, there's ads plastered throughout there, and they're under the guise of looking like a social networking site. A lot of like even Google, when it started out, it was kind of touted as like, this is cool because there's no frills. It's just search. People were mostly using Yahoo back then, and Yahoo was very busy, and you had news, and it was a lot of extraness, and then people migrated away. And like, once these companies receive critical mass, they start, 800,000 users of ChatGPT, and most people aren't paying. You know, you gotta admit that at some point that's not gonna last for long. The party's gonna be over soon.
Yes, but also that is a good that having free users isn't
What I mean is like the free users might stay, but the party is over in terms of not finding a way to monetize, subsidizing that with some other source of revenue.
I agree with you. I agree with you from the monetary perspective. But I think that just like there's values in your fleet. This is what Tesla has proven. Like having those cameras all over the place, that's your sort. You're creating data that other people don't have, and it's that's where your moat in the AI world comes from is getting data. So on the one hand, I agree with you 100% that ChatGPT is in a position where they got to figure out how to monetize all those free users. But on the other hand, they've got a source of data that nobody else has.
Yeah, and they're getting people's likes and dislikes, and they're getting free data from people, and more users are coming to them, and yeah, really interesting stuff. But we didn't get to the kill 'em chain, but we will next week. Also, I think next week we're going to cover Claude Code Sandbox, new security feature coming out or is out already. We talk a lot about, bad things you could do with an LLM, and this seems to be a way to kind of sandbox yourself from that activity. As usual, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week. Take care.
Take care.